Today on The Prime Ingredient, I'm looking back at my mom's old recipes, and we're gonna make a Thanksgiving meal that she would be very proud of. Love you, Mom. We are gonna make the cornbread for the dressing. And let me just tell you the difference between a dressing and a stuffing for a turkey. A dressing is something that you put inside of a casserole and you bake it separate from the turkey. A stuffing is where you actually stuff the cavity with the breadcrumbs and all of the mirepoix, the carrots, the celery, the onions. You stuff that inside the turkey and cook the stuffing with the turkey. I don't prefer it that way because I kind of like the crispy edges of a dressing, so we're gonna make the cornbread for it first, and then we're going to create the dressing. So the recipe calls for 2/3 cup of milk. So I'm going to use the milk, but I'm only gonna use 1/3 of that milk. And I'm replacing the other third with fresh squeezed orange juice. You want to make sure that you're using fresh squeezed orange juice. Get fresh oranges and squeeze them yourself, and then also take a little bit of the zest and add that in there. So now what you're doing is you're layering the flavors in the cornbread, and it's also going to come through into your dressing. So let me introduce to you the star of the show, the prime ingredient today, and that is European butter. Back when you couldn't get European butter in the States, I would go to a place in Beverly Hills and they had a secret stash of European butter, but now we can get it everywhere and it is so delicious. So get Plugra or Kerrygold, and I'm going to need 1/3 cup of melted butter. Now, if I were to continue on with the recipe as it's stated, we would add an egg, and then you would be ready to go. But instead, I'm going to add some sage from my garden. This is the smell of Thanksgiving. Let me show you a little trick. It's called chiffonade. You have to take the leaves and give them a little stack, and then roll them ever so slightly. And then you're going to take some thin slices. And then I'm just going to do a little mezzaluna chop right here, and then we're going to add that into the batter. I'm going to break up the egg and all of the ingredients. I'm going to mix them together. The Krusteaz mix is my favorite, but maybe you have a favorite also, maybe Marie Callender's or the Jiffy, whatever it is. But adding to it and layering the flavors as I've done is just going to elevate that box mix. So give it a stir until just combined, and then we're going to put it into a greased pan. When it says greased, it means greased. If it says lightly greased, then you just do a little schmear here and there. But this one, you know, go for it, because the butter is going to definitely make a delicious flavor also. And unsalted always. Add the batter and have your oven preheated to 350 degrees. And when it's done, we're gonna cut it into cubes, add a little mirepoix, and it's going to make a delicious dressing. So come on back. Now introducing the star of the show, Henrietta. Anything under 16 pounds is considered a hen. Anything over 16 pounds is a tom. I prefer hens when it comes to selecting a turkey because I can make 2 of them and they'll both fit in my oven. It's about 12 to 13 minutes per pound of turkey that you cook it for. I've already seasoned the cavity with salt and pepper. Okay, and because I'm not stuffing the bird with a bread stuffing, I'm going to actually use all of these herbs here. So I have this lovely oregano from my friend Elena's garden, and then from my garden I have sage and thyme and some rosemary. And I'm going to use all of it, but I use less rosemary than I do the other herbs because this can really overpower, and I want to have a blended flavor, not an overwhelming flavor. The next thing I'm going to do is rub the turkey all over with some butter. And I'm using the Kerrygold butter for this one, and I just want to get it all over the place, okay? And then I'm going to add some salt and pepper. And do not be afraid of your salt and pepper. I'm using kosher salt, and just go for it. You might make a little bit of a mess, but don't worry, you can clean it up after. Just make sure you get it all over the turkey. Let's do the pepper. This is freshly ground pepper. I have a pepper mill, so it's good to get that freshly ground. It just has a better flavor. Now I'm going to tie the bird up first. Don't worry if it looks perfect because people are going to be eating this, but I do want to get the legs close together. I have melted butter, our ingredient du jour, and I also have some Chardonnay. So this was from a winery that I visited in Arizona, and a startup winery by a wonderful, wonderful woman. Her name is Bridget, and it was great. It's called Tantrum Wines, and I thought that's just perfect. So this is going to be butter and the whole bottle of wine, and then we're going to add some salt and pepper to this. And now you're wondering, what in the world is she doing? Did you see all that salt? Don't worry about it. And blend all this together. And I want to show you this really neat trick. Cheesecloth, okay? Cheesecloth is going to create like a blanket for the turkey as it cooks. And it makes it so that the skin gets really nice golden and crispy. So what you're doing is you're soaking the cheesecloth. I know it looks kind of weird, but it is really delicious. You're soaking the cheesecloth in wine and butter, and then that also is going to flavor the turkey. So we just lay the cheesecloth all over the turkey. It's like it's getting a little spa treatment right here. As it's cooking, we're going to be basting it with the rest of the wine and butter mixture, and I will use it all, but I don't use a baster. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this liquid into a pitcher, and I'm just going to pour it a little bit at a time. My prime ingredient, of course, is the butter, but this is a prime tool. Super, super important. Pop this in the oven, 450 degrees for about 20 minutes to get everything all cooking, and then we're going to reduce the temperature for about another 2 hours, and we're going to cook this turkey, and we're going to give it a shot with our dressing we made when we return. Seriously, could be the ugliest thing ever. In you go. Once the cornbread is done, take it out of the oven and let it sit for about 20 minutes. Let it cool off, and then cut it into beautiful little cubes. Use the same pan that you used to actually make the dressing. So re-grease and then set it aside. And inside, where your cubes of cornbread are, you're going to add a mirepoix of carrots, onions, and celery with some chopped sage that have been sauteed in butter. Then you have to add a liquid, and the liquid I'm using is a little bit of the orange juice and some chicken broth. And you don't want it too mushy, and you don't want it too dry. About a cup of liquid should just do it. So now you have taken the orange flavor that you had in your cornbread, and you've now transferred into some of the liquid. And now what you're going to do is pour the mixture into the prepared pan. And just to make sure we get a nice golden crust, we'll just drizzle with a couple of tablespoons of melted butter. And this goes back into the oven for about another 35-40 minutes. I've taken the turkey out of the oven, and I removed the cheesecloth blanket that it was in, and this is exactly what I'm going for. 160 degrees in the dead center of that breast, and really beautiful caramelization of the skin. This is what I call Thanksgiving. Now remember, use the best butter you can get. And for me, it is Kerrygold for this particular turkey dinner. You want a good turkey, use any butter. You want a great turkey, use a premium butter. Thanks for joining me here at The Prime Ingredient, and we'll see you next time.